All right. Hello, this is Wmpyr here to talk about cross training. Now, cross training is a subject that I've talked on my YouTube channel many times, but hopefully this time I want to bring in some things that I didn't mention before or focus on things um, that I felt like was missing in previous videos. Okay, so um, let's see. Let me start off with in the 80s. I was an 80s kid, which means in the 90s, that's when I got into martial arts, and that was like the perfect time for that because the world just coincidentally was super into martial arts, like movie wise, like that was exploding onto the scene, and also video game wise. So we had like Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal become the Hollywood kings at the time in the 90s. And that was when I was in junior high, 1990. I just started martial arts. So it just worked out well. I mean, if you could start off at a young age, a younger age than junior high, good for you. But that's starting off as a child is tricky because it for some children it could leave a bad taste or it could burn out or it's a tricky thing. About 15-year-olds to me is like the ideal time to really start into martial arts, and also like younger than that, um, a lot of times it just ends up being more like a daycare school. So look, if they're able to get exposed to martial arts and it leaves a positive impact and they have good role models, like the instructor's a good person, then that's all great. But it doesn't always turn out that way, is what I'm saying. So you force it too much on a kid, they could end up going the other way. So yeah, it's tricky. That's all I'm saying. So 15, around that age, I wanted to do it. I was like, I'm sick and tired of being in swimming, the swimming team, and it's just that's not for me. I'm not that kind of athlete anyway. I was never athletic. I'm not an athlete, so I want to do martial arts. I liked martial arts movies as a kid, growing up all the way, action films and all that, and the video games. Street Fighter 2 just came out in the 90s. Before that, Street Fighter 1 in the arcade. I remember playing that. Um, so it left a strong impression. Where am I going with this? Where I'm going is, so at that impressionable age, at 15 years old or junior high, high school, around that time, super into martial arts, the stuff that was popular, whether it was Street Fighter, the video game, Mortal Kombat, the video game, or movies like Bloodsport, I really liked seeing different martial arts styles. And then I would pick up something like Black Belt Magazine or Inside Kung Fu Magazine because that's what you were looking at, because books were limited. You go to the bookstore like Walden Books, it was just limited. And I'm not even sure they had a half price books at the time, especially in my area. No, down in the valley, and the internet was not what it is today. I mean, this basically is non-existent. So looking at magazines, they show a bunch of different styles in there. That was always fascinating to me. So it only made sense that cross training was a good path, a martial arts path for me. Now, before that, or even during that time, a lot of instructors were kind of like, you should only stick with one style. And you go, well, I'm also interested in this other style and this other style. And they would look at you like, you know how hard it is to learn one style and you think you're going to do 3, 4, 5 styles? Get out of here, was kind of the idea, right? It's like, to get it down quality, one style takes a lifetime. So what the hell are you talking about? They would look at you like that, right? They look at you as, oh, you're not devoted. Oh, you're scatterbrained. You're not focused. This kind of thing. So cross training at the time was, it could be taboo in many ways. But it's weird because when I'm reading about like the founder of Aikido or some of the other world famous martial artists and stuff, they cross-trained. They didn't care. They went outside the box and they cross-trained. And I look at some of like look at the Chinese styles, 5 animal kung fu. Well, doesn't that sound like the founder of 5 animal kung fu cross-trained in 5 different systems of kung fu? you know, yeah. So it just kind of like made sense to cross-train. Like people would talk bad about it, yet it was all over in the martial arts world. You see it. It within like Shaolin Kung Fu, you saw that there were different things going on in there. Like there's a master who is an expert in, some kind of iron claw, or this other guy was an expert in the shadow kick, and then this other guy was an expert in something else, and you had so those are kind of like different styles. And so you go train in Shaolin, you're going to be exposed to all of that. Isn't that like training, cross-training in different styles? So it was always there, is what I'm trying to say. And now, for me, like I said, my personality and my environment growing up in the 90s, cross-training made sense. And then, of course, in 1993, the UFC came out, and then we saw hybrid fighters come out. I saw Pancrase. I mean, they call themselves hybrid fighting. And then, of course, we got to see guys like Marco Huas. We got to see guys like Don Fry. These were all like cross-training UFC champions. So cross-training, I liked it. Made sense to me, works for me. That being said, I got to make this ultra clear, ultra clear, is that I don't believe it's the best way. All right? I like it. Personal preference. But that's different from saying this is the best. You all should cross-train because I cross-trained and I think it's the best. No, I don't think that. And I will never, ever say that. Because why? This is where I tied in my philosophy with my approach, with my martial arts approach. I put in the philosophy and it makes sense for me. And to make that happen, I said there's many ways to climb the mountain. And the best thing that happened to me, or one of the best things, was in college, I fought a guy who didn't really cross-train. He was one style all the way. I fought this guy. I was cross-training like crazy in a bunch of different styles. I fought this guy to a draw. So that told me that I had to respect that there's other ways. So in this case, it was a guy who didn't cross-train. He believed in one style. So, I really thought before the fight that I would annihilate this guy, but I didn't. It didn't happen that way. It was a draw, like I said. So I had no choice but to give respect that there's other ways to climb the mountain. All right? So I want to make that ultra clear. Now, cross-training, I like it for me, works for me. And so now the next thing is there's various types of cross-training, right? Many people don't know that. Many people don't know that there's a lot of different ways to cross-train. And one of the things that I hate was when you talk about like the UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championships, they call it MMA, right? What is that? It's MMA. Okay, that's the sport of MMA, combat sport of MMA. What does MMA stand for? Mixed Martial Arts. What I hate about that is that could be anything. So you could cross-train in Wing Chun, cross-train in Sistema, Wing Chun, and Tai Chi. And then you call yourself a MMA guy. That's not the same as someone that does BJJ, Muay Thai kickboxing, and freestyle wrestling. To me, that is totally not the same. All right. Even though, yes, they're both mixed martial arts, they both cross-training, it's very, very different. So at that point, I started to realize, wait, there's different types of cross-training. Okay. So the way that I've been telling you guys is that I view all martial arts styles, for combat's sake, I divide them into 3 categories. And that is traditional, sport, and tactical. Those are the three big divisions, okay? So traditional is obviously the traditional stuff. The sport stuff is, if there's a competition, that's a sport, okay? And then number three, the tactical stuff is modern. So they're not wearing the gi, they're wearing like street clothes to make it more realistic. They would talk about the law, right? They would do scenario-based training, de-escalation, where they involve communicating and verbal skills as well. They would wear protective gear and spar with weapons. Use modern day weapons, not nunchucks. Nunchucks and spear or stuff like that. That's going to be in your traditional. So this is modern day. So now we're talking about like tactical folders, pepper spray, flashlights, this kind of thing. So those are the three big divisions that I see. And what I created something called 3D cross training. 3D cross training means that you train in at least one style from one of those categories. So if you train in, like I said, Wing Chun Kung Fu, and then you train in Praying Mantis style Kung Fu, and Five Animals Kung Fu, and Tai Chi, and you also train in Sing Yi, and I'm running out of styles here. uh, you're also training in, let me think. Okay, so like, uh, sorry, I'm drawing a blank. I got all these images in my head, but this is not really my area. So a bunch of Chinese styles is what I'm thinking. Okay, so like White Crane and um, that kind of stuff. All right, so you're training and all that. Those are all traditional, what I put in the traditional category. So even though you might be training in like 6, 7 styles, that cross training is 6, 7 different styles. That's an impressive number. And you might be, really, really getting good quality stuff, but you're only getting the perspective of traditional. So then to me, you are not 3D cross training. Yes, you're cross training because you're training in different styles, but to me, that's not 3D cross training, three-dimensional cross training. So three-dimensional cross training is, like I said, you need to train in at least one traditional style, at least one sports style, and at least one tactical style. Okay, and then also the other thing that's very important here is that you are not a convert. So I don't care if you trained in Taekwondo many years ago and then you fought someone that was a wrestler and you got your butt kicked. So then you go, I'm not going to do Taekwondo anymore. I'm going to do wrestling now. That's a convert. That is not someone that I learned Taekwondo. I'm going to combine Taekwondo with wrestling. That's not the same. That's a convert is like, I was doing Taekwondo. I got my butt kicked by a wrestler. Now I'm a wrestler. That's a convert. So I am, to me, not interested in converts. And there's a lot of people out there that will list, they will say in their backgrounds, they go, I did this style, this style, this style, this style. But really, they're only focused on the newest style. So the rest, they had no intention of ever using it today. They have no intention of combining it with what they're learning today or for the future. It's all in the past and they don't look at it anymore. They don't practice it anymore. That to me that's a convert, okay? So for me to be proper cross-trained, you're not a convert. So that's another thing that I have to mention to you guys. Okay, so why am I making such a big deal about cross-training when I don't think it's the best way to go? The reason is because, for me, it's almost like a mission to tell you guys, lecture this to you guys, is because to this day, people argue about what's the best style, period. Or this style works better, this style's not as effective, this style works, this style doesn't work. This style is good, this style is not good. That kind of mentality, right? And for me, the cross-training philosophy, if you go deeper into cross-training, it negates that. Okay, so I'm not for one style is better or one style is more effective. I don't believe in that at all. I'm against that. Okay, so people talking about that, what's the best style? You know, what do you think is the best style, best martial arts style, period? Like if you put them all in a room and make them fight, which style would be the last one standing kind of thing? And I don't believe in that, all right? I don't believe in that at all. So why? Why not? Because I believe every style has its place, has its place. And if you want to find out it, like you put everyone in a room and you lock the room and see who comes out, that's an individual. That's not a style. And that's what Bruce Lee was saying. This is about the individual. So we could get a Rickson Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy who's not a fighter. He's maybe a wonderful philosopher. I'm just saying the individual happens to be a wonderful philosopher. Bruce Lee himself, he talked about training Steve McQueen and James Coburn. He said James Coburn was more of your scholar. He loved philosophy and all that. He said Steve McQueen was more of the action guy. He was very physical and he'd like to do it. So between the two, who's more of the fighter? Let me guess. I would say Steve McQueen was more of the fighter, and James Coburn was more of the philosopher guy. So it's two different things, right? So if you get a Rickson Gracie black belt and this individual happens to be more of a philosopher, or maybe he's a fantastic teacher, because we also see people that are awesome fighters, but they can't teach worth a lick. And then you see other people that are, the opposite of that. They're great teachers, but as a fighter, they're not really. They're definitely better as a teacher. So that exists. I think people used to make the mistake. If you're a good teacher, then you're a fighter. You're an amazing fighter, period. That's what they thought. No, we now know that that's not true. So, it's really the individual. And every style has its place. Why I say that is because, well, I mean, look at MMA, right? Look at UFC. So on the ground, if the fight goes to the ground, then obviously ground skills, wrestlers, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys, it's going to be important. If you're on the ground and you're in a defensive position, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is really going to help you out. If you're on the ground and you're in a dominant position, then maybe wrestling can really help you out. Or maybe you're up against a guy that is amazing on the top, but you happen to get the top, so now you have to control them. So then, as long as you can control them, like for example, Dan Severn versus Tank Abbott. If you watch that fight, The Ultimate, Tank Abbott is a devastating finisher, but Dan Severn was the better at control. So he controlled Tank. Did he devastatingly and convincingly finish Tank Abbott? No, absolutely. He didn't finish him at all. I mean, Tank looked very, very frustrated, but he looked fine. I mean, he looked pretty healthy, right? So as long as he recovered his stamina, he looked like he could do it again, right there, then and there. On the same day, he looked like he could go again. He probably could. Dan Severn, on the other hand, if he had taken one or two of those Tank Abbott shots, he probably wouldn't have been up. So, but he controlled the fight. So then the controlling skills mattered in that situation. So I'm just saying there's a time and place for every skill. It's just a matter of can you make it come alive. For example, Alistair Overeem versus Brock Lesnar. If you look at that fight, I mean, if Brock had taken Alistair down to the ground, it would have been ugly for Alistair, I'm sure. But Alistair was able to, dominate it, keep it standing, and really hurt him with knees, and then finish him with that the liver shot. So, good for Alistair. So what I'm saying is there are different skills, right? Different skills have their time and place because they're just toolboxes, right? There's a time where a hammer is effective. There's a time where a wrench is effective. There's a time where you need a screwdriver. There's a time where you need a flashlight. So to say, is a flashlight better than a hammer? It's ridiculous. It depends on the situation. Now, so a lot of smart people, I think, will understand that argument and know that styles are that way. Well, what if the style's ultra similar? Okay, if two styles are ultra similar, and then you look at one and you go, that's a more watered down version of the style. They don't spar as much. They don't, train as hard. That this is a McDojo version of the other style. Okay, you could say that. Does that mean that that style is useless? No, I don't think so. Everyone wants to go, well, let's get the best guy from this McDojo style, and let's get the best guy from the hardcore style, and make them fight and see who wins, and therefore the winner is the best style. That is stupid. that is, people think that's like the type of person that thinks, if I argue with you and if I win the argument, then I'm right and you're wrong. And that's not the case. That is simply not the case. That doesn't mean that you're right. No, it just means that you won the argument. That's all that means. And it could have been because they were scared of you. It could have been because, you're just better at arguing. I mean, it has nothing to do with really, really, really being right. Okay? So, yeah. The reason why I could even say that a muck dojo has its place, right, is because when I look at myself back in the day, when I started martial arts, I was not fit, right? I wasn't even average. I was below average because I came from a bunch of illness. I had a bunch of illnesses, so someone being below average, if I went to a professional boxing gym, I wouldn't have lasted that day. I would have been dead. Complete. If they had trained me, I would have been, oh, this is not for me. I should not even think about doing martial arts. In fact, I could tell you, before I joined my first commercial martial arts studio, I was in Japan, and we had to do it. It was part of PE. We had to do judo. And we did judo. We sparred. I got annihilated. I was basically choked unconscious the whole minute, or however long the match was. And I wasn't fully unconscious, but all I saw was black. Okay. And if the guy had his technique down, I would have been unconscious. Luckily, the guy was just using brute strength and didn't have technique. And his brute strength wasn't strong enough that he could put me out because we're the same size, roughly. But yeah, I mean, I just got annihilated. And that was like, man, I should never do martial arts. It crushed me. Inside and outside, physically and mentally, crushed me. I almost gave up martial arts. But thankfully, came over to the US, decided to give it another try, went to a commercial studio, and there, I was able to handle. It was hard. It was honestly too hard. I should have gone to a easier school. You see, so that's why it has its place. Just because, let's say you're one of those people that thinks MMA is the greatest, right? You like MMA the best, but you confuse that with thinking it is the greatest because you like it. So you're confusing your opinion with facts. So let's say you're one of those people, and I don't know, like you have a nephew, and the nephew's interested in martial arts. So you tell your nephew, hey, go do MMA, right? Because you recommended such a difficult sport, his success rate in that is going to be extremely low. That's like saying to someone, who barely has an education, you go become a doctor. How is that supposed to happen? They might have the knack for it, but chances are they don't, like the rest of the population. Most people don't have what it takes to be an MMA fighter. It's just a fact. It's too hard. The training is too rough, too hard. So, but if you had a different route, maybe you might be able to get there. For some people, some people that are right on the cusp. It depends whether they make it or not, depends on the path they took. The different paths. So with my students, I've had students before that wanted to become MMA fighters, and what I did with those guys was, did I say, hey, all right, go to this MMA gym, and then we'll get you a fight next week? That would have been the greatest way to kill if they had even a potential to kill their careers. Okay, But instead, it would be much, much better to say, okay, you've been training, now you're ready to go compete. All right, when you go compete, let's not do MMA yet. Let's just do boxing. Let's just do kickboxing. Let's just do grappling only. You know, limit it instead of let's put it all together and let's see if you could handle all of that. That's a very rough way. So, once again, I feel like every style has its place. Its place. Okay. Now, the only thing that you have to be careful about that is because I am not making it okay for fraud and bad things. Okay, these things unfortunately exist. There are some bad schools out there. I earlier said McDojo, and what is bad about a McDojo is they're not teaching you good stuff, and they're taking your money, a lot of your money. That's what's bad about it. Okay, so you just have to be careful of negative things like that. Okay, I'm not saying that's cool, all right? But I am saying that every style has its place, all right? So please don't mistake the two. And yeah, that has been one of my biggest messages. So the cross-training thing, the first important message real quick to review was that I like cross-training, but I definitely believe it's not the best way. So please understand that. Number two is that every style has its place. So to say that one style is superior to another, now we're going into like racism, genocide, that it's to me no different in thinking. Yes, one's more extreme than the other, but it's the same path. Okay, so you want to stay away from that. So anyway, that's really, and the last thing I got to talk about is right here we do have a picture of Bruce Lee. And so Bruce Lee's cross-training method, I said there's different types of cross-training. The way that he cross-trained, my understanding, once again, this may not be accurate, and it's fine even if it's not, because that's not the point. The point is quality over quantity. So my understanding was Bruce Lee trained in at least 32 different styles of martial arts, but it wasn't so that he could say, hey, what styles have you done? And he lists all 32. No, he researched and studied 32 different styles in order to defeat them if he ever had to fight somebody from one of those styles. So he really focused his own style on just four, which was Wing Chun, Savate, and boxing, and what was the fourth? Fencing. Yeah. So those are the four that he focused on for himself. That's my understanding. So that tells you right there that he was into knowledge, acquiring as much knowledge as you can, but at the same time, remember, he's the one that said it's about a daily decrease, not an increase. So once you increase as much as you can, then you start decreasing it. So once again, what he really means, in my opinion, is that it is about quality and not quantity. So that's that other famous quote where he talks about, I fear the man that does 1,000 kicks, not the man who has 1,000 different types of kicks, right? So yeah. So anyway, that's just another type of cross-training to consider. Okay, so I do believe in quality as well, but at the same time, expand your knowledge, go experience stuff as much as you can. So that's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.